Welcome to the Music is My Life podcast from Berklee Online. I'm your host, Pat Healy, and take note of Anna Bulbrook. She is probably best known as the violin player for the Airborne Toxic Event and Edward Sharpe in the Magnetic Zeros. But there is so much more to her output than mid-aughts indie rock. She played on Beyonce's Lemonade, and most recently, she has been instrumental in establishing Girls School, which is a woman-led musical organization in Los Angeles. Anna says it was a gig with Kanye West in 2005 that made her rethink everything she thought she knew about music and the violin, which, by the way, she had been playing since the age of 4. So let's let her tell you all about it.
I was a classically trained violin kid, so I started playing violin at 4. So music's always been in me. It's been part of what I do. It's just been around. But I think the first time I really had like that powerful, I'm being swept experience, I was sitting in the concert hall at New England Conservatory before it was like updated. And I was sitting on a phone book because the seat was so lopsided that I was like falling over to one side. Jordan Hall. It was before they redid Jordan Hall. And I think a youth orchestra was playing Mahler 2. Was it Symphony? Is that the one that has a huge choir? It's like Symphony of a Thousand. So there's this youth orchestra terribly playing Mahler. And I was so moved. I just was like, just swept in this like objectively terrible rendition of Mahler. And I remember that very clearly. I still have dreams about the hallways of NEC and practice rooms because I spent so much time there as a kid.
So did you initiate the desire to pick up the violin, or was it your parents? Or
So I also have an older brother who plays violin. So I think when he started, he's a couple years older than me, and he also is a professional musician. And when he started, I started. You know, when he started piano, I started piano. When he started violin, I started violin. And yeah, I think my parents, neither of them is a musician, but they're both really good at figuring out how to get great training. We have some other serious musicians in the family. So I have some like aunts and uncles and cousins who are really serious musicians. One is in the Colorado Symphony. You know, like my aunt was like a Juilliard trained cellist. So she really knew how to get us great training. And so my parents would kind of go to them for sort of direction, I guess, or encouragement. But they really committed to raising us as serious violin kids, the way like dance parents raise dance kids and sports parents raise sporty kids, you know? It's like a family commitment.
did you grow up loving that type of music, or did you also enjoy what was on the radio in your youth?
That is a mixed question because I enjoyed some of radio is not a neutral landscape. So
No, I guess it's not.
it's not like all music on the radio is good music.
What kind of music you like? Oh, radio.
Radio. So I grew up listening, I grew up like every kid, I think, like listening to the Beatles. And then, you know, I was a child of the 90s. So when I got my first compact disc and my first cassette tapes, it ranged from like Alanis Morissette to like Notorious B.I.G. to Stone Temple Pilots, who I think are kind of objectively terrible also. But one of my first jazz CDs was Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. I remember I also had like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys in my 6-disc CD changer next to Aphex Twin and like Ravi Shankar. So I listened to like kind of everything. But when it came to radio stuff, Boston had this really amazing old school hip hop station,
Jammin' 94.5.
Jammin' 94.5. And there was like another, maybe it was Emerson College had a radio station that sometimes had really amazing hip hop. So I listened to a lot. And then it was also the 90s. Popular music was just fucking amazing in the 90s. Between like Nirvana and what was happening in hip hop, the 90s was like a pretty sweet time to be a kid discovering music, you know. Sidestep my Sharona and just like get in the passing lane and go straight to like Nirvana and like Notorious B.I.G. And so that's the stuff I grew up on.
Right. So when you were doing all this classical music and doing Mahler and stuff, were you also learning how to play any of the contemporary stuff that was going on?
I think I started to get like, so the other thing about this being this classical music kid is like, you're so sheltered. You're so focused on learning how to execute at this incredible level. you just have to log hours, kind of like being a little gymnast. You just log hours training your muscles to do these insane things. And then you add like expression and you add inspiration, when you're in quartet rehearsal or in orchestra rehearsal. So I felt like I got jazz curious. So I bought Kind of Blue in high school. And I didn't get it. Like I just
Right.
wasn't ready for jazz yet. My palate was like, "What is this?" So then I went on an embarrassing but pretty wonderful ska journey for a year or two. And then I discovered like Rancid and Op Ivy. And then I came back to Kind of Blue and was like, "Holy shit. Holy shit." I get it now. Like I just had a little bit more like language and context to start listening to jazz. And then I studied jazz for my junior and senior year at NEC. I just kind of took it up, but I was like way too shy and repressed in classical to like really embrace improvisation yet. But it was amazing. Jazz was like I'd studied music theory, in classical music. There's what's that composition book? Is it we always called it Carl Fox. Is it Carl Fuchs?
I think so, yeah.
A counterpoint. So we studied some Carl Fuchs or Fuchs or whatever. Fuchs. And just it's fine. It's just there. But in jazz, you actually like apply theory as you're learning it because it is the language that you're using. You're just learning the language and to use it all the time. So I actually retain the jazz theory. I learned a lot better because I was always forced to get up in ensemble, like, in my little jazz combo and like rip a solo shyly and painfully.
So, okay, so you were attending school like at NEC?
No, NEC has a youth program. So I was just a regular high school. And then on Saturdays, from when I was 9 till I graduated from high school, I would be at NEC in music school.
Okay, because yeah, when you said like my sophomore year and then at NEC, they were just like that was the period of time when you're
My sophomore year, or yeah, junior, senior year of high school, I started
right.
taking like a couple jazz classes in my Saturday lineup. Youth choir, chamber music, private lesson, orchestra, and jazz. I mean, it's insane.
It is, but it's interesting too because I'm really curious about this convergence because you did end up going into rock music, but were there, talent shows at school that kids recruited you to play pictures of Matchstick Men or something?
In high school, I was still really buttoned up. I just couldn't quite break out yet. And I actually had like a huge come to Jesus moment when I graduated from college. But in high school, it's like I grew up in a tiny town called Weston, Massachusetts. My high school class had like 120 people. And there was one band in my middle school and high school. I went to a different high school, but there's one band in my town, kind of in my generation. These three kids and one of them, taught me how to play like a riff from Nirvana, like on the guitar when I was like, I think we were like in a church group or something, like because our parents made us go to church, and I remember we had a sleepover in the church, and then we just spent the whole night like learning how to play Nirvana songs and like doing laps around the church. Like it was pretty hilarious.
You were learning a little bit of Nirvana and then so I guess I would like to know about that come to Jesus moment or before that. No, not literally Jesus, although we were talking about the church. But you went into college at Columbia and were you playing regularly while in college?
Yeah. So I've always kind of had two sides, one where I loved school and I loved writing and reading and like regular kid stuff, and one where I was this really serious violin kid. And I kind of always felt like I was operating on two tracks at the same time. And then in college, I kept that up. I went to Columbia. I did not audition for the Juilliard program because I didn't want to spend 5 years in school, and I stayed very serious about the violin and did like all of the classical new music stuff at Columbia. So all the experimental music, working with like Tristan Parich, who's a really interesting composer and kind of sound installation artist designer now, was in my class. So worked with Tristan a lot and like just kind of was in the music scene at Columbia. So like was concertmaster of the orchestra, played in a different orchestra that did operas, did new music, and I was in a screamo band that I joined as a dare
Oh, cool.
because my college boyfriend, this college boyfriend, and before we got together, he like dared me to play in his screamo band, and I accepted the dare. And then I had this experience where Like, it was kind of my first cultural introduction to what it was like to be in a band. I would just be in these rehearsals. And, I was like a hyper scheduled kid taking a huge course load, practicing 3 hours a day without getting credit for it, like dashing off to private lessons between like a full, it was just like one of those like hyper scheduled kids. And I'd be at rehearsal with the band and they just like would never get anything done. Like, we'd sort of get stuff done, but like the singer would yell at the drummer and be like, sit the fuck down and play the fucking drums, you fucking idiot, and the drummer would stand and be like, this is stupid. I was like, how does this function? Like, how does anyone? I was be like, this isn't how we were taught to give each other constructive criticism at string quartet summer camp. You know what I mean? I was like, this is not very professional, but also it's pretty fun. But like, we had, fans, probably like 3 to 8 fans that were really into our music. We had hit songs like "Dad, You Haunt Me with Your Short Shorts."
Okay.
That was a song.
And what was your role in the band?
I played violin.
Okay.
And I think most of the time I think most of the time I didn't know where I was in any song.
Yeah.
Like, if I rejoined for a chorus to play a melodic part, it was like miraculous. It's like pretty lost in space. But it was just a good introduction to like loud music and guitars and different ways of doing things. And my poor parents came to so many shows at the basement of the Knitting Factory or whatever, or the weird bars up by Columbia. And they would just like be in screamo and noise environments, like we'd play a show. And then like my parents would sit in the back, and then in the back corner was this artist called Knife Storm, and he would just like crawl out of like a bunch of amplifiers and just make a whole bunch of like really loud, dark sound, that was just noise.
Yeah.
So like actually getting the classical new music training where you sit through a lot of like compositions that, especially like, there's a lot of classical new music that's like pretty trying for the listener.
Mm-hmm.
So they had like some good practice to get there. I think it wasn't, it was just really loud.
And did you have to kind of assure them that like, this is not where all of the training I have had is going necessarily?
No, I think one of the most beautiful things is that my parents invested so heavily in my musical education and my brother's musical education. And I've had talks with them now where they're like, I don't know why we did that. Like, I don't know why it was such a focus, why we didn't just like let you go play with your friends all day. That probably would have been healthy. But they gave us this gift of really supporting our development and getting us incredible instruction. And, when I was like, hey, I want to start studying jazz too, they were like, cool, let's sign you up for some jazz stuff. It was this gift. And what I learned later when I was 21 and I had my come to Jesus moment is it was a gift generously given without strings attached.
Pun intended.
And there was no expectation that because they'd given us this gift of investing in us, that then we needed to deliver on it. Basically, I kind of continued this journey through college. After college, I had my huge come to Jesus breakup moment where I was like, hey, I am not going to play in an orchestra. That is not the life for me. Going to conservatory to practice a bunch, to then like take auditions, to then like, like play in pickup orchestras, to then like maybe eventually get like a job in an orchestra. I just couldn't imagine that path for me. I'm not good enough at doing the thing that everyone's doing. I'm not, frankly, I'm probably not even good enough at violin to really do that. I would have had to work so hard, and it just didn't. Every time I would play a violin concerto in front of people, I would have a meltdown after because it wasn't it wasn't a joyful space. I'm also kind of social, and I learned that like, all that practicing alone in a room is not actually how I feel best and how I thrive. Like, I'm really kind of a collaborative social person. So I had this instinct like, no, that's not the path for me. And for the first time in my entire life, when I was 21, since I was 4, I quit playing violin. And after college, I worked at a music festival. I worked at the Aspen Music Festival. And I took a job in the office, working for the artistic administrator, literally making concert programs. It was so boring, but Aspen is so incredible. And the festival was amazing. And I learned a ton from everyone at the festival. Just like making concert programs is just boring.
Right.
Turns out I like a little more challenge and I'm less good at the admin. I learned a ton doing it, and, I was still in the classical space, but like adjacent to it. And so that was weird because I was near it, but not doing it. And my friends were at the program and playing and I wasn't. And then I just accidentally moved to Los Angeles at the end of that summer. Truly didn't have a plan, wasn't ready to go back to New York. A friend offered me a ride the night before I was getting kicked out of housing. I was like, yo, about that ride, is that still available? And I hopped in a car with her, showed up in LA, 14 scary hours of driving later. It just worked out to stay. But still, when I got here, a lot of my friends were still from classical music world. My brother was here. He went to USC and he also played violin. So I still had like a lot of connection to the music world, but I quickly just started exploring because I was 21 and needed a job and needed things to do. So I interned for this music marketing company called Filter that had a magazine attached to it. And it was an indie rock company. So I remember the first day, the guy that hired me as an intern, who has gone on to become like a huge music journalist, he was like, hey, here's the LA Weekly, circle all the bands that are coming through town that we should pay attention to. And I literally couldn't do it. I didn't know any name of any band. I think I was like, oh, there's Jimmy Eat World, and I know this because I saw it written on your bulletin board over there. But I was like, I can't do this. Like, I don't know anything, which just sounds silly to someone who ended up being so steeped in like the indie rock world. But yeah, I just didn't know shit. So I made friends. We went to shows. We were the people that handed out the flyers after the show because music marketing in the early 2000s. And I learned, and because they were still marketing CDs, I would just get whatever CDs they had, and I would listen to stuff, and I listened to a ton of music from like Block Party to like Trail of Dead to like Conor Oberst to like I remember seeing the Arcade Fire at the Troubadour, and one of my colleagues that I interned for was like, "Yeah, we're gonna go see this band. It's called the Arcade Fire," and like 2 years later they were playing with the Hollywood Bowl. Like it was cool. It was like really this special time in LA, this special time on the east side of LA. Like Silver Sun Pickups were like about to break out. Cold War Kids were like coming on up. It was just a good time to join a community. So I spent like probably a year or two kind of learning the ropes and just being part of the scene as like a person discovering popular music for the first time.
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous.
No, like, I love it. It's like an awakening.
It was an awakening, but it was also like a death and a rebirth because I was no longer Anna the violinist. I was like Anna, this new person who's discovering stuff. Like I did all the things I wouldn't do when I was a violinist. Like I started doing martial arts. So I got like fit for the first time really. And like, in case somebody kicked my finger, I would never have done it before. And just like I was like really fully 21 and exploring, and 22 and exploring. I worked jobs. I worked at a talent agency in the classical music department for a year. Then I worked at like a big entertainment PR firm, but again, in the arts, like nonprofits, classical music department for a year and a half. And then somehow in that time, one of my friends from Aspen called me and was like, hey, Anna, there is this rapper coming through town. His name is Kanye West. We're all going to play with him. We need one more player. Can you get out here? Like, we'll get you a ticket if you can get out here. Here's the budget. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Sounds fun. I'd love to come see you. So
wait. Was it real in all your education? He was still just to you, this rapper named Kanye West. You didn't know of him at all?
I didn't know. No, I didn't know of him.
Wow.
Because, I was like off in this like kind of like twee white kid world of indie rock. Or in LA, like, it's like pale people making indie rock a little bit. It was like kind of the early 2000s. That was like still how it was in this medium and connected to like the magazine I was part of. It was like, yeah, it was like pretty homogenous in a way.
Uh-huh.
Still pretty doodly, still pretty white.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I picked up my violin after like not having played it in months and played a couple scales and like showed up in Aspen. And that was when I had this huge revelation, like, oh, you can play music like this. Like I was sitting behind Kanye West, watching him walk back and forth, singing on stage. And this is like the hubris of someone who is trained in classical music, where like you're trained to do the most impossible thing ever, play a perfect violin concerto. It's fucking impossible. So your standard of what's good is like, is that really hard? And did I do this really hard thing impossibly perfectly? So to me, I was watching this guy walk back and forth across the stage. And in my classical brain, I was like, that doesn't look that hard. Like, not saying I can write a great song, but like, oh my God, look at all these people having a great time on the side of a mountain. I'm sitting back here. These songs slap. And like, oh, you could play violin like this. And also, I think two things. One is like, I just, it's like my value assessments of what was important and what was good about music and what you could do with violin all shifted at the same time. And it's like the programming that I had instinctively like stepped away from, like when I wasn't going to be in an orchestra anymore, it suddenly like it fully released, and I was like, oh, you can play violin like this. And then I literally, so the singer of my band was the editor of the magazine where I was an intern, and I just knew him socially, and I'd known him for a couple years, and I literally joined a band with him like a couple days later.
Did the people at the Filter, were they at least, you played with who? What? You did? Like when you came back from that trip?
Well, I mean, I only was in an internet Filter for like 8 weeks or 12 weeks or something so small, which is why it's so funny that it's had such an outsized influence. So like there's the two guys who founded it who are both named Alan. I've run into the Allens over the years, like when we were at South by kind of starting to make it. And then again, when we were at South by doing our victory lap, you know, when you like come back and you like play stubs and it's sold out and it's really exciting versus like when you're a baby band and you do like 40 shows and you're hauling your gear through the street all day doing 5 shows a day. You know, it's like different.
Yeah.
And just like kind of having some moments of perspective with the Allens because they've grown up over the years. But I think they really were like tickled that we did it. But I don't think anybody was like, yo, Kanye, that's amazing.
Oh, interesting.
You know?
So you, when you came back from that weekend in Aspen, you were returning to Filter though?
No.
Oh, okay.
I hadn't worked there. I was returning to my full-time job. So I returned to work at a PR company, like a big entertainment PR company. Yeah.
Okay.
I like took a weekend off, flew to Aspen, came back to work on Monday, and was like, all right, I will be in a band.
That's amazing. Have you run into Kanye West since then?
No, I mean, I have many people who intersect with his world. Like you can't be a creative professional in Los Angeles at a functional level and not.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I haven't worked with him again. I mean, honestly, it was like so minor. It's like you could be anyone and get plugged into that job to play that gig. I just happened to be that person that day. It happened to just the shape of that day shifted my perspective. It could have been Kanye. It could have been someone else, maybe. You know, it was just that happened to be the vehicle for the day where I broke through to be like, there's other ways. There are other ways. And that's all I needed, you know? And I feel like that has shaped like my whole adulthood is like the loosening of rigidity and the acceptance of fluidity. Like,
right.
Or the invitation of fluidity has like sort of been like learning that painfully early at 21 and breaking up with something that defined you is like breaking up with yourself, like breaking up with classical violin. Like it was a loss. I did therapy. It was insane. I didn't know what I was doing. It was painful. And then finding music again and finding it this other way was like, it was amazing. And then what I discovered when I started playing in a band is that I had this like reservoir of performance energy and stage presence that I just never thought I had. I never suspected it was in me. I was too shy before. Somehow put me on a rock stage and I just knew what to do. I knew how to be in a moment and like take people with me there on stage and that's it. It was just like this incredible discovery when you're just like, oh, someone threw me into water, but I'm a mermaid. You know? This is my zone.
It's funny because I remember I saw Airborne Toxic event at one of the South by Southwests. I don't know if it was the Victory Lap or the Starting Out, but I think it was Starting Out because I had interviewed Mikhail like a few weeks before and I couldn't get into the venue and it was an indoor venue and I was like, do I text the guy? I have his number. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to text him because I got to cover this for the newspaper. So I did. And he was like, yeah, sure. Great. And he like got me in. But I remember you like dancing on a table while playing. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah, I was brave. I'm surprised I didn't injure myself more or break more violins.
So did you injure yourself at all?
Twice.
What happened?
My first time crowd surfing. I had like sort of been like starting to like creep towards the edge of the stage. And then like, I've been kind of like, you know, like you push a canoe into water. I've been doing a little of that on the crowd. And then we were playing, I think it was Austin, and it was not South by, it was for a Christmas radio show. So we were playing with the Ting Tings and the Black Kids. And there was this cluster of kind of young women in front of the center microphone at the stage. And there was this big build in a song. And I knew there was like a release. And I was like, this is my moment. And I ran to the front of the stage, kind of from deep in the back of the stage. So I don't think they really saw me coming, but I felt it. I was feeling it, and I ran, and I turned backwards, and I started to fall like Jesus falling, or like I'm a golden god, but
Yeah.
backwards, like that scene from Almost Famous. And I could just see people in my peripheral vision starting to duck. And they did not catch me. They did not catch me. I fell from the stage at Stubbs, which is like 5 or 6 feet high,
Oh, yeah.
to a concrete floor, holding a tambourine. I realized what was happening as it was happening, and I was like, holy shit. And then I'm lying on the ground. I'm still playing tambourine. I'm like, they can't tell. They cannot see
Yeah.
that they can't see that this sucked. So I'm like, I'm playing tambourine. I'm trying to make like I'm in it face with a song. And I'm like wiggling my right foot. I'm like, okay, you work. I'm wiggling my left foot. You work. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, I can stand up. I get up. I get back on the stage, and I'm like, they cannot know how ashamed I am and how much that fucking hurt on a physical and also just like soul level to they didn't catch me,
Right.
It's like literally like the stuff high school nightmares are made of. So I like way overcompensate on stage, and I'm like, yeah, I get back on stage. I could see our drummer standing up, like looking into the crowd with concern, like, is she gonna get, I get on stage to finish the show. I run into the arms of the Black Kids. I'm like, just like sobbing. And then I couldn't walk properly for like 2 weeks. And we were still kind of a baby band. We still like carried gear at the airport sometimes. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll meet you guys at the gate. So like hobbling slowly. That was one dramatic time. And then after that, I always communicated with the audience, and had my own personal sort of safety routine with the audience before I would jump.
Right.
I was like, you're there, right? You're right, guys? Okay, now I'll jump. The other time I was just being stupid. I climbed up on top of the monitors on stage in stocking feet with a tambourine and fell from on top of on top of the mains.
Whoa.
Down past below stage level all the way to like the venue floor. And I had like 360-degree bruises, like green dinner plates all over me. There was not a side I could sleep on that was okay. And like the best part was every single person in our band and our support band and my then boyfriend were all on stage playing the encore together. No one saw it. Like 10 people in the audience were like, oh my God, she's going to be dead. And then everyone else was like fully involved in this like collective catharsis, doing like People Who Died by Jim Carroll or something,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, Anna, safety, important.
That's great. So you're in this brand new world, you hadn't been living with these bands for years. It's kind of a crash course from Filter and getting all those CDs. So as you were getting all these accolades, like as a baby band, were like, what's the thing? Like, didn't U2 like give you lip service? Wasn't Adam Clayton saying, oh, this is one of my favorite songs? I mean, did that have meaning to you, or are you just like, oh, great, whatever?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. And we were in like the sort of towards the tail end, or maybe we were kind of towards actually the heyday of MySpace. I remember Franz Ferdinand like posted about us on MySpace and friended us, and we were like, that is fucking cool. Like I knew enough and I learned a lot. Like, it's like I was listening to Modest Mouse and Franz Ferdinand and the LA version, the Moving Units. Like, like I got my education in indie rock and what was happening really fast, I think. And like you can't grow up in the 80s and 90s and not know who U2 is.
Right.
Or Garbage. Like one of the craziest parts of my adult life is like getting to know Shirley Manson from Garbage and being like, you were like a childhood hero,
I saw she was blaming you for turning her on to Crocs.
Yes, I've proudly and shamefully got Shirley to get some Crocs.
What color? I wonder what color
Oh,
she'd
I bet
get.
she got. I bet
Red?
she got white.
White?
I bet she
Okay.
got white. But I'll confirm.
Yeah.
I'll see her on Tuesday.
Okay. So with Airborne Toxic Event, you were in the band for 13 years. And what made you finally decide to stop being in the band?
Well, I mean, we did so many amazing things together, and while Airborne was going on, I also made the first record with this band called Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros.
Yeah.
So, so we were Airborne was off to the races and on the radio. Edward Sharpe's record came out a year later, and then they were super off to the races and on the radio. And so, like, Airborne was Bay, and then Edward Sharpe was kind of like I'd sneak out of the house and like play with them sometimes. They're my side piece.
Yeah.
My like really amazing, wonderful side piece that I proudly celebrated. Like, uh, so it was a super incredible 10 years, and I got to do everything kind of under the sun with Airborne. We got to be on TV. We got to, like did all the late night shows, but we also did like an episode of Gossip Girl. We got to be all over the radio. We toured the world. We made 4 records. We did like a crazy show at Walt Disney Concert Hall where we had my brother's string quartet play with us. And like, I think my parents like died and went to heaven that night, seeing like their kids together on stage at Disney Hall. We even did a whole tour with a string quartet. I did seated venues one summer. So I had my big brother on the bus with me, which was super cute. So we kind of did everything. And then everything I didn't get to do with Airborne, I got to do some of that stuff with Edward Sharpe, like play the Hollywood Bowl. I kind of felt like I had such a complete experience. After several years of this, I started playing in bands when I was 23, and it felt like I had won the lottery, and kind of like, it's like the man had come calling for me in my early jobs, and I was like, I'm out of here. I have cheated the system. This is awesome. Like I figured it out, and I've exited the trap here, and I'm like in this free world where I get to do whatever I want. It's awesome. And then over time, I was like, hey, this is really beautiful life. At the same time, I'm getting curious about what it looks like when I really create and drive every decision in my life. And it's not structured around a group that needs to tour or, a creative leader's decisions. Or I just kind of felt like I was part of a thing. And that thing was so encompassing and so defining. And I was really curious to see what I could do myself. And also over time, I woke up to like, hey, it's pretty weird that it's all dudes all the time. Like that's actually just weird. It's not a normal experience. It also wasn't my experience in music growing up. As a classical kid, some of the instruments were kind of gendered, but the whole orchestra thing was really 50-50. And a lot of the women were like way better than a lot of the boys,
Right. But I'd be remiss if we didn't go over Lemonade a little bit. How did it come to pass that you worked with Beyonce on like one of the best albums ever?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I can take very little credit for this. And I can just, I love bragging about it because it's so fucking awesome. And I'm such a huge Beyonce fan. I came to it the way I came to that Kanye gig. Someone called me. I think like I showed up and I was like the last of the violas and the violin. I was like, oh, someone probably canceled and they called me at the last minute, I think someone got sick and they were like, hey, Anna can play viola too. Let's get her in here. I had to sign an NDA and I showed up and I was like, this is going to be good. I had to sign an NDA. Is it Beyonce? Is it Rihanna? Who is it? And then I got there and I was like, yes, it's the queen. It was just like someone called me and I happened to be free and I went,
That's amazing. Was she in the studio with you?
She and Jay came towards the end of the session. John Bryan he'd done the arrangements and was conducting the session. They came. We stayed an extra hour so that they could come and give some notes. And she actually gave notes where I was like, I really agree with that note. She's right. This does sound better sustained. Like, this doesn't sound better sustained instead of pizzicato here. But over here, it does sound better pizzicato. She's so fucking right. Yeah. And then watching John Bryan's mind go and he's like calling out different notes in the chord. And I mean, it was really cool and really stressful because my alto clef sight reading skills are not that strong. So
interesting. Oh, wow.
I was like kind of, low key, like just really making sure I was playing the right note and not playing the rests for that session.
Right. You worked on some film soundtracks somewhere in between there. When was that?
So I have a friend here who composes for a lot of stuff. And so I just go to his house where he has like nests of modular synthesizers and and then I just play stuff for him. That's how it's literally friends at this point. Like, I think his manager met me because I played on a session when I was like 22 and then connected us on email. And then I think it was like 5 years later, he was like, "Hey, can I hire you for a session?" And we just started working together all the time. Yeah. And now we were realizing, like, oh, we've become old friends. Like, we've now been friends for 10 years
Wow.
because of that circumstance or whatever. And time happens. So I feel like most of my film TV stuff is with Andy, and then sometimes I get hit up for this or that. Playing is not my main gig anymore, so I don't do a ton. I kind of do it when the artist is right and the but they're I just kind of do it when it feels right and I have time. The one gig I did last year was like playing with Perfume Genius for his live stream, and
Wow.
it was terrifying because I had to do some practicing before it. And those parts are hard and high and exposed and in weird keys for the violin, and we don't have frets. So I was like,
Right.
and I'm a super fan, so I was like really trying to practice to sound good.
Back to the film scoring real quick though. And you say you bragging rights for playing on Lemonade. What are the films that you worked on that you brag about the most or just feel the most proud of? Like, wow, I was a part of that.
Honestly, I don't do a ton of film, but I have played on. This is ridiculous. This is very LA. Last year, I played with Perfume Genius, and then I recorded violin for season a billion of Storage Wars. You know, like almost all the violin on Storage Wars is me. But like, I don't always brag about that, but it's super funny and weird. You know?
Yeah, that is super funny and weird. So okay, you quit the band, you play on Beyonce's Lemonade, you play with Perfume Genius, you play on the billionth season of Storage Wars, and then somewhere along the line, this girl school project comes about. How did that happen?
It was just one of those things where one day someone had been just somebody actually is this girl Nicole who played bass for Smashing Pumpkins for a while, and she'd been kind of inviting me to come to this like feminist summer camp for girls and like talk about music and stuff, and I had just been sort of like putting it off for no reason. And one day I went, and it like rewired my brain. Like truly, I had a joyful day watching young girls use music. I mean, it would just rewire my brain in 100 ways. Watching them use music as a tool to learn sort of like intersectional feminism and just how to be a cool person in the world and how to have agency and use your voice and take risks and support each other while taking risks. And like, I was just like, holy shit. It was the first time I'd ever been in an all women environment around making music ever in my entire adult life, ever. So, or just my entire life.
Mhm.
And in that one, I think spoke at an event, and then I came back like that 1 2 hour thing. I was like, I just had like it's like watching Black Panther. You're just like, this rewired my brain because this is something I don't get to see all the time. And it just resets your synapses to be like, wow, now that I've seen this, why doesn't this exist? Like, why is this just here? So I started looking for the other women kind of in music in East LA and started from a place of not knowing a ton about intersectional feminism or the local music scene, even because I'd been on tour for so long. Founded this festival called Girl School and just kind of on instinct was like, let's do this festival. And then, it's a women led project, women identified led projects. We did 3 days at a small venue here. We did it for 3 years. And honestly, it just felt good. The first time we did it as sort of a test case, it was this free little residency and it just felt good. And it took on this meaning that none of us thought it would. And we were kind of like early on the feminist festival tip here,
Mhm.
or like this latest wave, because there have been plenty of feminist festivals around. I just kind of felt like a lot of the sort of feminist festivals that were available were really genre specific or community specific. And I wanted something that I felt was not genre, was a little bit just more inclusive across the board and kind of using the idea of just finding excellent music as a way to welcome people into like, what does it look like when you just see more women on stage, running the stage, like what does that look like? So yeah, we did it for 3 years. And by the third year we had, Shirley Manson headlining and we had Fiona Apple join her as a surprise guest. And we had Karen O sing with a band of like actual children. One of them was 4. Best Coast came and guested with that kid band, and now that kid band is like literally on movies here. They're called the Linda Lindas.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of cool, like super cool, really amazing, creative parents who are like super involved in the Chinatown community have this band of rad kids called the Linda Lindas. We had like LaKaylee 47 next to Jason, next to Mareba, next to Carrie Brownstein as our keynote speaker being interviewed by this poet, Morgan Parker. And then like, honestly, like all bets were off. Girl School, it's called Girl School. Girl School was happening and it was calling to me. And I felt like this is what it looks like when I choose my life. And I just want to see how far I can go. So that's what happened. I started a festival. The short story is I started a festival that had a lot of meaning to me. It got a little heat in the world and it started to take on a deep momentum for me personally. And then I just needed to see,
That's great. And so that's where you're still pouring most of your creative energy into?
Yeah. So now Girl School's kind of evolved over the years. We did a collaboration with the LA Phil. It was a big tribute to Yoko Ono. We brought 75 women into the stage at Disney Hall and performed a bunch of Yoko's instruction pieces and her pop music too. And she came and we made her cry, and that was insane. It was insane. So stuff like that's happened. And then now, I'm kind of on this wave of functioning more as like cultural curation meets production company. So we can really actually kind of take the values that we honed and learned through the festival and just put it into practice and get everybody paid.
That's cool.
Because it's really cool to make a symbol that means things to people and points people in a direction. Like that's really important, but it's also important to just hire awesome professionals. And like Girl School sort of has started functioning like when we do events that are ours, that are sort of like kind of just driven from a passion from us, then that becomes the marketing for this community of talent. And people are like, hey, that was cool. Can you do that for me? I'm like, yeah, I can. And here's the team. And, and it just might look a little bit more diverse and open-ended than someone else's team,
Right. That's really, really cool. The other day, when we were trying to arrange the interview, you had said you were on set. Was that Girl School related or something else?
Sort of. Actually, I think so. The other thing that's happened is because Girl School went how it did, then I got asked to start bringing that cultural curatorial lens to clients and to other projects. So I do stuff as Anna. Like I currently work with a meditation company called Open, helping them with some of their cultural programming and around meditation and music and meditation and culture. And then I also produce and I'm about to direct my first music video in Japan, which is totally wild.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of like, that's all on full steam ahead. And then at the same time, I'm producing things for other people. And, kind of we're thinking about what our next creative event will be. But in COVID times, like we were about to do a festival in Chicago with the guys from the Empty Bottle and the Chicago Athletic Association Hotel. And, COVID happened. So we just tabled that indefinitely. And, it kind of pushed everything in the world of live events to the side and forced us all to explore other things. And if I'm going to be really honest, a hard year has turned into an amazing year of professional discovery for me. And that is why I'm on set all the time now.
That's great. So is on set, is that with the meditation company or the music video?
I will be on set for the music video remotely. So I'll be in like a dark hole for 12 hours overnight while they're all together in like a daytime studio, which will be really sad and really amazing at the same time. And then on set, yes, for the meditation company, I also produce other stuff. So sometimes I'm on set for that stuff.
Cool.
Also, I'm working on we made a dance film for this choreographer, Shauna Davis. So it's her directing dance film debut. So we shot that a couple weeks ago. And yeah, I also work with a little museum in Long Beach that is about to open its doors called Compound, doing some cultural programming for them too. And they're fine art, well-being, and community museum, which is super rad. It's so good. It's so beautiful. They do such a good job. And they're just getting started because COVID happened. So it's taken them a little longer to finish and open the doors.
you had just established your network to survive through this time,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
thrive, really.
yeah, I think like the push to bring in, I mean, I think I kind of had established a lane in the world of events and cultural programming, and there's only so many people who kind of do the stuff that I do, and I could probably name some of them for you on the East and West Coast because they're
Yeah.
my friends. But like, if you need a certain person who can do this one kind of weird thing, there's only a few of us who are like not retained by somebody who can do these things. And then, and then at the same time, getting kicked out of that lane pushed me to actually think bigger and differently, and maybe invest in other kind of practices that I wouldn't have made time for because I was so busy kind of living my big bad life all the time.
Mhm.
So now that I've done that, I mean, I'm like, oh, my ceiling, the ceiling shifted, and maybe that's also just because I can never keep it easy and just keep going. I have to always like up the ante and make it harder, and I'm sometimes like, why am I like this?
I wonder if any of that comes from your background in classical music and having such difficult things. Like, it seems like when you got to playing rock music, it was easier to play. So you needed to create new challenges, maybe. I don't know. I'm just interpreting. What do
I
you
think
think?
when it was easier to play, you're playing footballs, you're playing like long notes. It's so fun. So what I discovered was like the physicality of performing, that when I was unchained from a chair or classical constraints, like I really enjoyed painting a picture with the body on stage and like communicating that way. I think that was sort of like where I explored. But I do think over time, when you've repeated an activity enough times, if you're curious, it's hard to keep repeating the same thing, even if you're like writing different songs, and then you go on a different tour and you make different videos and then you meet different video programming directors. It's kind of the same a
Hmm.
little bit. The path is, it's always a little bit of a balancing act, but the path forward is like the actions that you're taking are kind of the same. So I think one of the dirty secrets of being in a band and being in a successful band is that unless you reach that, like, unless it's like the only thing in your life you ever want to do is play music in front of people, write songs and record them, if that's the only thing you ever want to do, ever, 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 then you should be in a band forever, ever, ever. But a lot of bands have an expiration point or an end date. I feel like I watched a lot of bands hit the 10-year mark, and the primary songwriters keep going. And then some of the other members start to think like, hey, what do I want to be doing when I'm 40? And will this get me there? And like, I've had these experiences. It's been wonderful, but like, what's next? And I think that's just something to know. And it's not something that people talk about on the way in, because it's not sexy to be like, what happens after this?
Hmm.
Like, even parents are like, okay, I have a baby, but like, I know there will be a time when there's an empty nest, and then I will have to deal with it. Like, we don't really talk about that in band world. You're just like making it. And then like, for most people, there's an arc, unless you're in U2. And then you're just so big, it's irrational to stop doing it, you know? So you keep doing it. And maybe they also love it. But there often comes a point, I think, for people where like it's good to like keep your eyes open and observe the world around you as you're moving through it, because every little weird thing you pick up, every conversation with somebody, every time you're nice to someone at the radio station and they're nice to you and you develop a relationship, you just don't know when those friendships will come back and support you in your next step or inspire you in the next step. Just always asking everybody at the label what they do, how they do it, like understanding who does what, like it will all benefit you in the end.
You seem to have also done a really good job of like keeping music in that place, and like it will always be part of what you do, I'd imagine.
I mean, there is no world in which I'm not a musician. It has been in me since I was a child. Like, there is no world, even if I don't play violin for a year, like, there is a baked in musicianship that someone who's just starting to play guitar doesn't have the same way, because they didn't grow up breathing the air. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that will always be there. And what I learned from classical violin will always be there, like always. And it's informed how I study in school. It's informed how I approach a producing gig. It's informed how I go running in the morning or practice yoga. Like that training is crazy powerful and so important. Like it's approached, like I started climbing a couple years ago and I was like, oh, I can break down this problem into pieces, slow it down, put it back together, speed it up, and then I can do it, you know? You learn that stuff from music. It's wild, or collaboration, or starting from zero and then being able to do something you couldn't do before. Like that is all musical training, and understanding how time works, having like rhythm and movement, and just understanding perform. I mean, there's just so much that you get out of music. So I feel like even if I'm sitting here making a spreadsheet, because that's how every fucking amazing project gets made, you like do a spreadsheet and you make a proposal and then like magic happens 6 months later, you know? The most incredible projects start with like, I'm sitting here making a spreadsheet by myself. It feels like impossible. And then 6 months later, you have magic. And like understanding how something breaks down into steps and doing it is like literally music.
Music is Anna Bulbrook's life. To show our appreciation for listening, all the way to the credits, mind you, we're going to give you a chance to save $100 off your first Berklee Online course. All you have to do, go to berkeleeonlinepod.com. You'll find all the info you need there. This episode was edited by Talia Smith, mastered by Jose David Vindis Mora. All visual assets coordinated by Mike DeBenedictis. Social media by Brooke Larson. Web assistance courtesy of Mark Thomas, Steve Zimmerman, and Joe McDonough. Thanks to our video team who posts these episodes on YouTube 2 weeks after they premiere on other podcast services. I wrote and recorded the Music Is My Life theme song, but the expert remixing comes courtesy of Lily Dickinson. Special thanks to Gabriel Reifer Cohen, Ashley Pointer, Maria Jose Joveo, and once again, thank you for listening. And hey, since you do not only listen to this podcast and listen all the way to the credits, as we've already established, I am going to ask you, loyal listener, please go to the iTunes site and leave a review for us. I know not everybody listens to their podcasts on iTunes anymore, but the reviews really help. Take note to join us on Monday, May 31st for a very special guest, Sly Dunbar of Sly and Robbie. Stay inspired, listener.